Hi, I'm here to talk about the distance formula and why you don't need to know it. First off, what is the distance formula? The distance formula is for when you're trying to find the distance between 2 points and you have the coordinates of each of those points. So, for example, if you had the point 1, 1 and then you had the point 4, 5, you could use the distance formula to figure out what the distance is between those 2 points. Now, if you'll remember, the distance formula is rather long. Not incredibly so, but sort of. The distance formula says that if you have 2 points, the first one here, x1 and y1, and then the second point listed as x2 and y2, that you can use those points to figure out the distance between them using that formula. The square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Now, that's not an incredibly difficult formula. And we can certainly memorize it, and you can certainly use it. But there's a basic reason why you don't have to have this formula memorized. You can use a much simpler formula, and one of my favorite formulas of all time. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. It's the Pythagorean theorem, all right? And that is actually what the distance formula is based on. And if you remember the simple concept of a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and you know how to use it in the context that the distance formula is used, then you don't actually have to have the distance formula memorized. And the nice thing about that is that things that we have to memorize, sometimes we forget, or get wrong, or get backwards. And so if we understand the underlying concept behind it, then we don't have to worry about memorizing it, and we don't have to worry about remembering it. So if you'll see, if we have those 2 points, 1, 1 and 4, 5, and we're trying to find the distance between them, like I said before, sure, we could use the distance formula. But look how we can use Pythagoreans. If we draw a simple right triangle connecting these points, where the 2 points are the vertices connected by the hypotenuse, we can see how we might be able to use Pythagorean's theorem to solve this. Notice, if we were to draw that straight line from 1 to 4 along the x-axis, we see that that is 3 units long. Then we draw another straight line from 1 to 5 on the y-axis, and we see that that is 4 units long. Notice, we are trying to find the distance that is the hypotenuse. So, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Notice that 3 is a, and 4 is b, and c is the distance we're trying to find, the hypotenuse. So, a equals 3, b equals 4, c is our unknown. And then we just use the simple formula, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. We get 3 squared plus 4 squared equals c squared. Then we get 9 plus 16 equals c squared. That's 25. And then we know that c squared equals 25. So we take the square root and find out that it's 5. The distance formula would have done the exact same thing, but not if you can't remember it. So remember, all you need to do is understand Pythagorean's theorem and remember the simple a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and then you can do the same thing the distance formula does without having to memorize it. And that is true because the distance formula is based on Pythagoreans. Notice that x2 minus x1 is just finding that value of a, and then y2 minus y1 is just finding the value of b. And then you're squaring them, a squared plus b squared, and that will give you a value that's equal to c squared. So you take the square root, and that gives you your answer. But why memorize and why potentially forget when you can just use Pythagoreans?